Hey folks, it's Amy from Colorado Mountain Living here on the voiceover. This video is a little bit longer because we're going over the polishing, the staining, and the epoxy stage finishing of our concrete countertops. Enjoy.
Alright, today's the day. I'm going to start buffing up the countertops. Got my Hitachi grinder. Got some diamond buffing pads on it. This one is 100 grit, and I have all the way up to 6,000 grit. So I don't think we need to go that smooth because we're going to put the bar top epoxy on it. So maybe we'll go up to 600 or maybe 1,500 grit and see how that works out. So I've actually got a dimmer hooked up to the grinder so that it's not going at, let's see, anyway, at probably like 10,000 RPMs or maybe 4,000. Anyway, I don't want to burn the concrete, so we'll try and keep it as low as we can. We'll see how the dimmer works. It worked pretty good in when we were in North Carolina. I did the other countertop, so and I'll keep it wet as well. So there'll constantly be water dripping on the concrete to keep it wet and lubricated so that it avoids burns. Anyway, let's see how it works out. Also, I have a GFI. Separate GFI plugged into the outlet, so just for safety. So it's working well. The water is ice cold. It is spraying all over my pants. So I made me a little trash bag dress so I don't freeze my butt off. Anyway, let's continue. So here's the sanding pads that I got, and they came with 2 of the 50s, 2 of the 100s, and then it started getting incrementally down. I think then 400, 600, so on, up 800, 1,000, 1,500, 3,000, and 6,000. So this one here was new. I didn't even have to use it the last time. So they really last quite a while, which is really nice. And I know you won't be able to see this, but it's already way smoother than it was. Now, one thing you want to be careful of is that we put those the aspen leaves in there to give it some detail. And you could grind it down enough so you see a lot of stone and stuff. And I did want to grind it down enough to try and see some of the crystals we put in there. But you don't want to grind away your detail as well from the leaves. So you got to be careful not to go too deep in those areas. The other thing that happens is you start to uncover some more air pockets. And so we might have to go back through with a slurry and kind of fill those in before we put the epoxy on there. And this hopefully should adequately clean the concrete as well, because there was wax in the mold. So I want to make sure there's no wax on it before we do the acid staining. Otherwise it's not going to work very well. So, and isn't that a beautiful evening? We're finally getting some sun in the evening, and so you can see behind me how really pretty that is. Alright, so I've taken this down to 1,500 grit. I'm hoping you can see how shiny that gets from the angle. So it is really smooth on the surface. Of course, you see the little holes in there. So I think that's good for now. Keep it down to 1,500 grit, then I'll acid stain it and then see what it looks like. And anyway, I've got the 2 big ones to go to, and you don't need to watch me do all that.
There's a lot of different pads in there.
50 grit, which I'm not starting with the 50. If you really want to take off some material, you can use the 50. I start with the 100. That's 300, 1,500, 3,000, and then 6,000.
6,000?
Yeah.
So it's just...
Well, that's the Velcro.
Oh.
This is the polishing.
Oh, I see. Okay. I was like,
And I didn't even use the 6000 on our other countertops, and you can almost, I mean, you can see a shine in them.
Yeah.
It'd be a mirror finish if you used the 6000.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we're putting epoxy on, so I'm just going to 1500.
Mm-hmm. That's the last one left you have to polish.
Right.
And then we can do the stain.
Yep.
And it was noticeably better weather, warmer weather to do this step than it was when Bryan did the other countertop. So we're just waiting for them to dry now before we apply the acid stain. But there's actually one little detail left, and that's getting the little bits of leaf that are in the detail here out. So I'm just using a little wire brush to kind of remove some of that leaf material so that it doesn't get embedded with the epoxy. So I'm just going to pick some of that out with some tweezers and stuff. So these are the two color combos for the leaves, left over from previous concrete countertop projects. These are just small.
Desert amber.
Uh-huh.
We're going to put the amber on first.
Right. Just do the edges, trim the edges with the green.
Yeah.
So we're trying to tint the leaf inlays to make them pop out more, because we're going. So when it gets to the color you want, you just neutralize it, or do you wipe it, or what?
I neutralize it.
Okay. So our neutralizing solution is in here. It's a few tablespoons of baking soda in a gallon of water. So I'm going to put it on my paper towel and then blot it off.
Yeah.
This is the brown that's going to go over the rest of the surface. How much of that do you think you'll use?
Not very much.
That was the smallest size they had?
Yeah, well, I figured I could use it on the wall, retaining wall, too.
Oh. So for the rest of the countertops, we're actually using a blend of a dark brown and a darkish red garnet stain. So we're going to kind of model together the two colors to give a more artistic effect. So there's no mixing, you just pour it in, you spray it as is. Spray it on, and then we wait 10 minutes or something, and then neutralize it.
Just whatever the color looks like.
Oh yeah, the color develops. So yeah. Here's an example of the color developing on the leaves. See how much more yellow it is than it was when we first put it on. When it dries out, then the color develops a little bit more. So the ones that are drier look a little more yellow. Yeah. So now you just spray away. Oh, look how yellow it is. It's like foamy.
Yeah.
It's acid. It's so brown in the bottle and then so yellow. But the yellow's already turning to brown over here. Getting darker. So Bryan's using a spray bottle to apply it, and I'm sure there's other application methods you can use to get different effects of your acid stain. Your colors are going to be more modeled this way. They're going to look kind of watery and kind of marbleized, so that's the effect we're going for. Getting that marbly look. So we're probably past the 5-minute mark, less than 10 minutes. So we'll just wait a little while, see how much more it darkens up. Right now we've got like a rusty yellow color going on, which is kind of cool looking.
But when this is dried up, it'll look different.
After you wipe off.
Yeah. It's not going to look the same color.
What's normally the amount of time you wait for it to develop?
It's really just based on what it's looking like. So we can wipe a piece off with some paper towel.
Right.
See what it's looking like.
So Bryan's going to rinse off this layer so we can apply the second color. Now he's not neutralizing it, he's just rinsing off. So the color that's got contacted the cement is still going to continue to develop its darker color. So right now it kind of looks tan, but it could still darken while we apply the second red color. So now we're mixing and matching. We're going to put on top of this one, which has kind of like a nice tannish undertone, as it's drying, it looks a little streaky, but this garnet on top, it's kind of got a reddish hue. So we're going to spray that on top of this one and then repeat the process. So this one definitely doesn't look yellow, but it looks really red going on. Let's try to get around the edges and get some contrasting. Ooh, look how orange it's getting. It's pretty cool. I like that one. I'll let that hang out for 5 minutes. So.
Dark it got right there.
It gets tricky when you're managing 3 different pieces. Now we're gonna rinse off the small one. Of course, it looks like all the color rinses off, but we know it's still reacting. It's kind of got a brownish hue developing underneath the concrete.
You can see on the back where I tested the green
Oh yeah.
before, and that I never neutralized.
Baking soda. So it's been about 5 minutes, and Brian's gonna go neutralize it now with the baking soda. This is baking soda water, a gallon for about a few tablespoons baking soda. So that really stops the reaction of it darkening more and coloring more. So at this point you can kind of decide if you're going to redo your process, because this is your final color outcome with your, when you got it all wet, that's what it's going to look like with the epoxy over it. So that's about as dark and as varied as the hue as you're going to end up with.
Yep.
So it's not quite the same vibrancy as the fresh spray.
Yeah. Contrast from what it was originally.
Yeah, compared to the original, which is like bright white. That's funny how that leaf
Yeah, I wonder why.
didn't.
I bet it's because there's the glue.
Oh, there's still some glue on there.
in there.
Mm-hmm. So remember when we did this little piece, it was a different bag of concrete to finish it. What we decided to do was put on a second application of the acid stain, a blend of both the brown and the red, so we could get a darker color, deeper hues. You know, it's hard to tell until you wipe it off to see how much the color's developed, and we've been surprised in the past before that it can happen within minutes. But we decided to go more for the hour mark instead of just the 10-minute mark to see how that would help. So we are at a good solid hour with a stain on, and now you can really see that red color developing. I think Brian was really interested in the 10-minute process because that's what he had done before in our last experiment doing concrete countertops, and we had really, really good results we were happy with. But I'm kind of excited for going over a little bit of darker feature. So now that we're getting some really wild hues, I'm going to do the baking soda water and neutralize, and then rinse off and see what we've got. So probably not going to stay this dark, but I love that rusty orange and dark red combo. I think that would look amazing. Pretty glad that we decided to try going, you know, over an hour with the letting the stain set. Whoa, pretty wild. It's almost like iridescent. Look at that! That's so awesome. Oh god, I hope it stays like that.
Same, that would look so sick. Holy crap.
You guys a close-up of this effect we're getting. It's like a super metallic-y effect. God, I hope that stays like that. It's just really wild. Not really what we were going for, but I think it's awesome. Super, definitely artistic looking. Mix up some more. Ugh, of course I'm splashing myself with it. It's probably not too healthy. Wowee. That is wild. That is like what you call acid stained for sure.
So pretty.
Huh. Alright. Got a couple more to do. Gotta do this one, gotta do this one. Mix up some more baking soda. See how this one looks. So this one's just as dark. I rinsed them off again, so let's take another look at what we've got. by far, the corner piece is the coolest. Super rusty tones and that wild metallic effect that came out after applying the baking soda. Hopefully that stays around a little bit. But really, really cool, bright, bright hues. So I think that's pretty decent for, you know, compared to what we were looking at before. Now, the corner piece that goes against on the other side of the stove did not pick up as much of the hue. You can still see quite a bit of concrete underneath and not so bright. Not quite as bright. But we also think that maybe because this one had a lot more aggregate and it was a different type of cement. But on the separated by the stove, it might not be that big of a difference because it'll be, you know, against the wall, against the window and stuff. So we can live with that. And the big piece, which is already drying, not quite as dark as the centerpiece. And we could put another layer of red on it. We really could do that to kind of get it to match. We could do one more spray down with red to get it to match this one, because this one certainly came out the best, I'd say. So, pretty wild. You know, you got to be comfortable with an artistic, you know, who knows what kind of effect you're going to get, because it's pretty unpredictable. So you've definitely got to be okay with not being 100% in control of your results. But I think this is fantastic. And I might give this one another spray down with some of the red, because I think it could look equally as good as this one. This one's just a little bit more like a tan base, so I might go ahead and do that. What do you think about how these turned out, eh?
I think they came out nice. Hey, no, no!
Get out, Vigo, and your sturdy self. All right, so maybe third time is a charm. These have been this has been an hour and a half with a stain on the small and then the piece on the table there. So Bryan's rinsing. I guess we had a bee end up in there. I'm gonna defoam. Deactivate. This one's just going to have just a little bit more of a amber color to it, I think. Except the leaves are pretty cool.
Yeah, it's coming out good. It's better than it was before.
Yeah. Oh, we lost a bee. Don't get tired of the dramatic sizzling of the neutralizing. This one seems like a better match now. It's a little bit more red to it, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely nice colors and a little bit of that iridescent here and there. Hopefully that stays with the epoxy. That would be cool. Nice little effect. Those two little aspen leaves. So we kind of lost a little bit of the green-yellow aspen combo, but that's okay. It looks kind of cooler with these really dark red leaves that took the stain here. See, I think it's going to be a pretty good match. It's a little bit darker overall. Those two seem to match better for some reason. The corner one's just really, really, really red. So, there you have it, the staining process. So, like I said, you got to be comfortable with whatever happens, because you can keep playing with it, but you're not going to be able to 100% control it, I don't think. Maybe if you're a master concrete stainer, you might have some more mastery over the process. So let them dry, and then we take them inside for the epoxy step. So, these will be dry in no time. We just got to set up our space inside to roll on the epoxy. Well, getting ready for our epoxy step, we are lining the edges of our countertops here with plastic on the floor, so to catch any drips, in case we might have those. This is what we're using. Wood glaze coat. So it's a 2-part epoxy. I believe it's 1-to-1, judging by the size of the container. So we'll mix it up in a container and stir it up and then pour it on. Okay, I got some mixing cups. Mix it up. Zoops up. Plenty. Pouring it into our mixing vat. There's part 2 A little more viscous.
Goes right to the bottom.
So the trick in stirring up epoxy is to make sure there's a lot of striations in the two parts as they mix together. So you're supposed to mix them up till you don't see any striations anymore. That's the trick. Okay, it's about a minute or two of mixing. We're about ready to pour.
And reuse this trowel. Try and be careful not to scratch the top. I think
Yeah.
it should be okay.
Just want to use a brand new trowel. Not getting any sediment on our nice tops. So I pour a strip down the middle, you think, and then
Yeah, maybe.
just see how it spreads. So it's definitely going to darken what we've got right now because it's giving it that wet look. Leaving any scratch marks? The other trowel we had triangle points between the grooves, so it just seemed kind of scratchy. So there's going to be a little bit of overflow over the edges here, which is fine. We put our plastic bags down. And then what we're going to do on the edges is take a roller and roller the edges here. So there's some bubbles you can see, the bubbles that were in there, and some of them are releasing. So we'll have to
We'll use the heat gun.
use the heat gun to release more. There's actually not much smell to the epoxy. It's not like plumber's epoxy or anything like that. Well, that was a pretty good measurement for...
Yeah.
It was a pretty good guess. We did 20 ounces of each part of epoxy, and it's pretty much covered the entire surface. So, the other thing we need to grab is the rollers. So what we've got here, just a little foam roller, and we're just going to roll on the edges to get that coverage.
If you need some, let me know.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I'm just using what's on there right now. You probably just drop it with you.
See how it's over there?
You probably just spot drop some. That way. So you can kind of see a few dimples where the holes are. Trying to get the glare right so you can see it. So we're going to try to spread a little bit more over that. Maybe drop a little bit more epoxy in those areas to try to fill in. So, looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I think we'll just do another coat tomorrow to kind of fill in these pits.
Yeah.
Let this settle and then put an additional coat on the top. And that should kind of, you can see where all the air bubbles were in the concrete. And it's, otherwise we'll be just dripping all over the floor if we put on a super thick layer. So.
Yeah.
All right, folks, so this is how we're looking with a little bit of daylight on the situation. You can see there's still that little bit of pitting on the surface from the holes. So right now we're getting ready to pour a second coat on top. So this is the sink piece. Still, we get a nice reflection from the lights. It's really showing where the little air bubbles are. So our goal is to fill in those air bubbles and smooth everything out. And hopefully we'll get a nice coat ready to install tomorrow. But definitely happy with the stain. It definitely has a cool, mottled, rustic look, you know, very, very rustic. So very artistic, I guess you would say. And then the leaf accents are pretty cool. Just gonna use a little bit to start with. So the next day, me and Catherine worked on getting the second coat of epoxy done. So we used up the rest of the epoxy to smooth out the dimples in the surface there. I'm definitely going to coat the whole thing, but I think just the little bit that we need will be plenty for filling in those little pockets of air. Okay, here we go. This is the final coat. Very smooth looking. And pitting essentially gone. There's like a couple little small pits here and there. But really nice, really shiny. Let's see, there's one little pit right there. And back to this one. Couple little pits, nothing much, super shiny, slick looking. Could see the ceiling and the plumbing in the ceiling. It's hard catching the actual color. So this is the sink piece. So I know what you're going to want to see next. How the heck are we going to get these two things upstairs? These two big pieces. The other piece we can carry. This piece, these pieces are heavy duty. And so that's a wrap on the finishing of our concrete countertops. A lot of steps involved, but they come out beautifully, and it's kind of hard to show the color in this particular video, but they are fantastic in person. So next video, guys, we will show you the install.